these faltu projects which were running around, shut everything down and go on a diet. Similarly, people sitting at home, our advisory to them is do not eat junk food, don't drink cola, eat pizzas, because right now you want to have good health and immunity, which is the second part. That go on a diet and build immunity. Immunity is when you are feeding yourself with healthy things. Similarly, at an organization level, I recommend people don't forward bad news. Right now, your WhatsApp is filled with this is bad, that is bad, and everybody is just feeding on negativity. Negativity is not good. I think this is the time to also, there is equal positive news also around the world. And I think my appeal to everybody is that, WhatsApp groups, especially when you are forward things which are positive, because people are surrounded with negativity, and immunity is a big challenge. And one thing which is impacting immunity is lack of sleep. So one of the people and the earliest sign for any mental health issues is sleep. And we are recommending everybody to, listen to yoga, meditation, whatever you can do, but get sleep, because that is going to start creating, anxiety, etc. All these problems are going to compound into that. We have made available, especially on our platform, coaches on sleep and nutrition, etc. But I think even as companies yourself and founders yourself, don't be anxious. The whole world is going to go down and go up at the same time. Nothing is happening uniquely to you or your company itself. I think you need to think of this as a natural calamity. So a lot of times people are thinking about it that, oh, this has happened to me. Do not have that syndrome that this has only happened to you. And thirdly, this is the time to build relationships, what you were just talking about, right? This is the time to build relationship within your family. You're only surrounded by your family members right now. You can't interact with anybody else. You are surrounded by your colleagues who are all working at home. And then you have customers. So invest this time instead of, being on Twitter and trolling people and saying all kinds of things, ki ye kharab hai, and blaming the government and blaming everybody. This is the time to use that same time to put it positively, invest in relationships, and make sure that you are ready. Clearly, this is not easy for anybody. I mean, everybody knows that there are going to be, revisions in salaries. There are going to be, every cost of yours needs to go down. And right now, it is going to be literally survival of the fittest, right? Whether as a company or whether as an individual, it is the survival of the fittest. And there are ways to become fit as an individual. And similarly, there are ways to be fit as a company. So cut, and of course, I'm not saying be inhuman about it. You have to talk to people, reduce, defer. There are various techniques available, right? From deferment to reduction to installments. I mean, you can try every, trick in the book. Talk to all your server providers, talk to your landlords, everybody in the world, and tell them that I don't have money to pay you. That's it. I know Harsh is sitting with a lot of cash, but he also is right now, I'm sure, negotiating all costs possible.
No, absolutely.
Exactly, right? So that's what it is. So don't be a besharam ban jao. सबको बोलो बॉस मेरे पास पैसे नहीं है तुमको देने के लिए बताओ क्या करें. Start with zero. You may end up with 20, 30%, 40%, whatever. But I'm just saying that you need to be besharam right now when it comes to looking at cost reductions externally. Of course, with your employees and all that, you need to work as a team, but be besharam and ask for discounts, ask for rebates, ask for all kinds of things possible, and you never know, you will get it.
Yeah, I think to add to Vishal's point, I think a lot of, I don't know how many of you are having banking relationships with working capital lines. One of the questions that I see is how many people have 12 months of salary available to keep, right? That's a very fair question. Non-VC funded company, right? So I think one of the things that we are recommending to some of our companies that have bank lines is to engage with the bank as early as possible. Don't delay your engagement, hoping that stuff will, fix itself. So if you're seeing that your AR is going up, accounts receivables are going up, you have to, and that cash will not be collected as you had expected it to be collected, and you are unlikely to make your bank, the payments and so on. Approach the bank sooner rather than later, and try and work out some model. I think many banks are obviously feeling the strain from SMEs, running into cash flow issues. They're all in turn, going back to the government and are trying to get the government and the RBI to address the issue as well. So if you have, the more you can be aligned with them, the more you are sharing information with them, the better your case is, that whenever there is a lifeline that is given by the RBI or by the government, you will be treated more fairly than others. So again, that's the other recommendation I would like to make.
Okay, we also have some questions on employee morale and how are you going to retain employees till the end of 12 months, and what is your strategy right now for keeping everyone happy and sane at their homes?
So I think I can jump on this because we've been talking about this for a while internally, but work has gotten extremely transactional right now. When you do video conferencing, people like literally jump on a call, dhande ki baat karo, and then you're out, right? You lose that water cooler fun part of the work, right? So we're actually organizing like bingo parties, antakshari parties. Someone's playing music and people are coming in from Zoom. We're doing like a poker party. We're doing all kinds of fun stuff because you still need to remember that people are at home and they are also fried, and they're going to be fried for the next few weeks. And you need to have that employee morale and motivation up. In terms of losing employees, unless you can not afford to pay their salaries, I highly doubt that's a concern. For the next 6 months, I think hiring is off the shelf for India, right? So if you can just keep your employees, that's good enough.
So what happens to people who are supposed to join you guys, say maybe this month, which you offered 2 months ago?
Yeah, no, there are like 20 people that joined us actually in the last few weeks, and we have a workforce of 300 people. So 20 people is a lot in that sense. And we had to do all innovative kind of things, right? We did like this fun game stuff, but we had a town hall of 283 people coming in on Zoom. So our whole point was that if you are a digital first company, then work from home on Zoom and all should be exactly like, carry on as usual, just more structured, etc.
I think that's important. The other thing, I think, for morale, just from our perspective, I think people are really fearful right now and anxious. First of all, they have very legitimate health concerns about themselves, their families. And secondly, they have very legitimate concerns about employment and what will happen to their company. So I think what you need to do as a leader, as a CEO, is communicate a lot. So whether it is, these online parties, online gatherings where you're simply communicating with everyone, like Harsh was recommending, making light of your days, having fun, injecting fun in everything that you do, but even just emailers. So one thing that I've found effective is every alternate day, and now I've reduced the frequency a little bit, every third day, I send out one email just with a few thoughts. Okay, this is what's happening. This is kind of my assessment. Not too heavy, but just reassuring. And I think that's working out really well. People respond very positively. That's one point. The other is, depending on the size of your organization, of course, but if you have an admin department, if you have an infrastructure department, if you have HR people, then please get them to communicate a lot and be available to your people as much as they can. I know that being available just virtually may not mean a lot of things at times, but if your admin departments can even figure out supplies and local areas, certain transport or last minute help in certain areas and localities, that goes a long way. We are finding that people are responding extremely well to that. The third thing that we've done is, and something that I recommend, and of course it depends on everybody's situation. Some of you, I understand, may not have a choice, but if you have a choice, then please do not, if you can make the commitment that there will be no layoffs, right? I think that will go a long way. One way to address the cost, the manpower cost, is simply to align to a principle that you will bring down everybody proportionately. So if you have to bring down your payroll cost by 50% to survive, and right now, remember, I know everybody's saying that, so I'm not going to repeat it too much, but survival is outperformance, right? That's what matters. So if you need to cut payroll costs by 50%, then try to see if you can cut everybody across the board 50% without firing anyone. And you don't have to worry about people leaving and going, because honestly, there's nobody adding to payroll right now. So people may not be happy about that, but what we have found, and we haven't done it as yet, but just in general, when we're talking to people, it's amazing how a crisis brings people together. Just hearing the fact that there will not be layoffs, and whatever we'll do together, and we're in this together. Everybody's more than willing to sort of, come to the table and do their part. So position it as a global sacrifice. The world is sacrificing, and so must everybody as part of your company. And if you need to be sensitive to people who get paid less, you can also cut it down, in slabs. Go lower at the lower levels and higher at the higher end. So that's just some specific input in terms of how to handle some very specific concerns that employees have.
And how are you all right now working within your teams to kind of manage if any of your employees are affected with the COVID-19 and stuff like that? Do you have task force which is kind of created? Are you looking at how you're going to be kind of empathizing with them, helping their family?
Yes.
What's been a blue book for that?
I can go again. So we have a pretty small task force of 300 people comparative to our size of business. And so we're doing some personal feedback. So we have an HR team that's available for anyone to call and talk about issues. Naveen, actually, you gave me a great idea yesterday about adding a doctor, and we've already started that. And today I think my team is speaking to an organization called V Health. Okay. And they give some virtual doctors availability, so that if someone coughs at home and people are panicking, they can at least, the best thing is to go to a hospital, right, to get the real help. But at least at home, you can talk to a doctor on video conference, and someone who can either calm you down or tell you, no, this is serious, you need to go to a hospital. And I think these things help a lot. So that's what we do.
Vishal, you have a tip on this?
So clearly, I think in our case, we have doctors, we have coaches, we have the whole, whole infrastructure available. And in fact, anybody out here at TIE, currently it's free. You can just download the GOQii app, and we have doctors, coaches available from 7 in the morning to 10 in the night, literally. So this is a facility everybody can use. But once again, more importantly, this is the time to be compassionate. Like I said, I don't think so any employees are going to leave you, or they will take it any negatively. I think it's better to be clear, transparent, and frank. So if you have a 6-month runway, tell them I have a 6-month runway, and if I reduce the salary by X, I can extend it to 8 months or 10 months, which will give everybody an opportunity. And I think that is how you need to talk about what is collectively good for the organization. What the PM did was he locked down the country for the collective good of the country, even though we know we are going to face financial difficulties. I think the same approach should be taken when it comes to organizations and companies, and tell them that, hey, yeah, this is a problem for our collective good. If we sacrifice this, this is going to give us a chance. So I think this is a time to really go, and everybody will get it. I'm sure that right now, every individual, every organization, every employee knows the situation we are all in. And I am confident that people will be open to all kinds of ideas. If it is linked to survival, that's what we are all doing. We are all trying to survive as a planet right now against this virus.
Okay. So moving on, I think there are a few questions I think directed at Sandeep with respect to, questions on how do we evaluate and what is the kind of conversations we need to be having with our investors now. What has the zero revenue, what does that mean in terms of recalibrating all our financials for the year? So Sandeep, how have these discussions gone on? What's your advice to startups currently?
So the first thing I would say, the good news is that all investors, all the major investors in the country have capital right now. People have raised money in the last year. year and a half. So everybody has capital that they can deploy. So I don't think that money is going away. So money will be there. I think that everybody is in a bit of wait and watch situation right now to see where we end up as economy, where do we end up, in terms of our health issues and so on, and how long this situation lasts. So people continue to work with startups. We are evaluating opportunities every day. People are still writing into us. We are engaging with them, but the whole funding cycle will get lengthened. So if you are running out of capital in a month and you need to raise money, I don't think it'll be easy at this time. So you should be thinking about cost cuts more aggressively. Sorry, is that feedback from my? The second sort of thing is around what type of companies will get funded. We've always, I would say over the last year, we've been talking about sustainable businesses, unit economics, getting to unit economic positive numbers and so on, as being very important for fundraising. And the whole idea of growth at any cost, which was prevalent in the market, is going to see some significant shift. We are seeing this in the, so obviously we invest both here and in the US. So we're already seeing some of that shift in the Valley.
Okay.
So people are starting to, look at businesses very differently if they are either profitable or have a path to profitability, a lot more than they used to. Many factors driving it. There is obviously, the whole WeWork, SoftBank impact that is still working through the system. And but I think it's becoming more prominent now in today's environment, where growth is more questionable now than it used to be. Right. So I think that's clearly a big question in front of everyone. But I would say, going back to my initial point, there is capital available, and there will be businesses that will get funded in the next 3 to 6 months. It's not that funding will stop.
Good.
Can I just add one thing? I know, Naveen, I have to leave. I had a call at 1:15.
Sure.
Can I just say one thing to the entrepreneurs here before I go? Is that this is the best time to be an entrepreneur, right? Because anyway, everyone's job is at risk if you're working. And if you can survive this, if you can survive global financial crises, and if you can come out of that, I think like Anupam said, or Vishal, I'm not sure, I think Anupam said it, but survival is like overperformance, right? If those are his words, that if you can get through this, you're sorted, right? Like we started in 2008, the global financial crisis. So did a bunch of companies like, I don't know, Flipkart, I think Airbnb and Uber, similar. All of them, many companies have started in the global financial crisis. And if you can get through this, everything else is upside, right? It's always going to be better than this after this. So just focus on surviving through this. Make sure you have cash, and things will always look up from here. That's the last thing I'd leave with.
So thanks, Harsh. I know you need to run, but we will continue with the rest of the panelists. And Anupam, are you thinking of starting online weddings right now? What's your plan now? I hear that this is the best time to do product innovation and get a lot of your things sorted. What's your views on that?
You're probably being facetious, but I think, surely as you have more time to sit back and reflect, one can identify opportunities. I myself, for example, when one is in the office, often you find that you're reacting to things, right? And when you're forced to work from home, while we still continue to operate as if we were in the office, but you suddenly become very conscious about your time, about your meetings and so on. And I'm just finding that I have a lot more time to reflect.
Sorry, Anupam, you'll have to be a little louder. We're not able to hear you.
Yeah, sir, I'm just finding that I'm having a lot more time to reflect, which is great for innovation. So I don't know about online weddings and stuff like that. We'll see, because right now our focus, as I said, is really on.
Sorry, we're not able to hear you, Anupam.
Sorry about that. Maybe it's my connection, but let me try
Yeah, now you're better.
something. Is it better now?
Yes, much better.
Okay, I'll just increase the volume here. Yeah, so as I was saying, I think the focus right now is to ensure that the employees are safe and assured that they're going to be okay, and really just making sure the operations are in place, and finally, really bracing down for cash flow challenges, and making sure the P&L can support what might be a long drawn out winter or summer, if you will. So I think that's really our focus, and I think that's where everybody's focus should be. I think there will be time, depending on how long this draws out, for innovation and creativity in terms of new products and services. But from our perspective, this is perhaps not that time.
Got it. Yeah, Vishal.
Just to add to this, I think people have to seriously start thinking right now of what is going to be the new normal post-COVID. I think a lot of business models, a lot of businesses will have to evolve, because there is going to be change in behavior, massive change in behavior of people in terms of what they were doing today to what they're going to do tomorrow. So this is a good time to reflect and start thinking of that behavior change and how you are prepared for that. I think that's going to be extremely important. So whether it means, looking at new products, new tools, new services, clearly this is the time to look at it. For example, I mean, gyms, there is definitely a challenge for that business model going forward, because clearly for some time people may want to avoid going to physical places, especially where a lot of contact is involved. And just an example, right? So I think similarly, there are many other category of businesses which has a lot of touch and feel, and wherever there was, physiotherapy sessions, anywhere massages, what is going to happen to all these places where there was, physical contact required? Those businesses are going to have challenges. Similarly, when it comes to hygiene now, I think, hygiene as a business is going to get very evolved. So I think Urban Clap and companies like this who are doing home cleaning and all kinds of things, and people will figure out that there might be new models for offices who would want specialized cleaning to be done in terms of disinfection and all kinds of things which are happening. So I think there will be a lot of new business opportunities coming out of this, and people who are smarter right now should think about that. Don't get you don't need to get married to an old business idea. Think of how you will evolve it post the COVID scenario. Already, I mean, I'm not going to give you company names, but one of the companies I'm involved in, their US counterpart is telling them, we are willing to outsource you 70% of what we were doing, because we know you can do it so much more cost effective. So this is a great opportunity for offshore, because remember, while you are here, there are so many companies in the West with much higher cost structures who are sitting, and for them, cost cutting is becoming even more tougher. And they are seeing that how can they offload a lot of this. So this is, instead of you thinking about looking at this, just think about companies you could contact in the US and offer products, services, because they are in even bigger crisis, because the cost structure, the salaries, especially in the West, is so big that a lot of these companies just can't sustain the salary structure. So I think I only see opportunity in this for everybody out there. I've already posted, and I want to repeat this again, I'm not a scientist or a doctor, but I'm pretty confident that we will be through this crisis at least in the next 1.5 months. And I think then about, end of April, early May or mid-May is when we need to start thinking about going back to the new normal. And the new normal will definitely involve evolution in thinking, evolution in overall businesses, right? I mean, we are all right now on Zoom. So I think the whole conference businesses, any businesses which required huge gathering of people will have challenges, right? Conferences, big seminars, events, companies like Book My Show who are doing a lot of bookings, people may want we be more wary to get to movie theaters. Think about, I'm just trying to extrapolate and give people ideas that, just start thinking of scenarios that where people have crowds, where there is contact, where there are all these things, and how you could think of these as business opportunities. So it is going to be a new world. What 9/11 did to the entire security, right? I mean, airport security, and how all 5-star hotels have now security in India after Taj attack, right? So think of the massive change happening in behavior after a particular event. So after COVID, there is going to be massive change in behaviors worldwide. And this is the time for all the smart people out here to adopt. And yeah, virtual weddings is a great idea, Anupam.
Yeah. Anupam,
So,
good
guys,
segue
I'm gonna jump off. Just a couple of points I wanted to make. Vishal, I'm good to see you. I'm not fully aligned with massive behavioral change. I think there'll be a time and place for that. If at all that happens, I think that's going to be a function of what the human cost is and how long this lasts. I find that human beings have an incredible ability to quickly put things behind them and get back to the old way of doing things. So I'm more in that boat right now, but I think it'll depend on how long this lasts and what the cost is. I'm very aligned with your first point that you were making, and I just want to emphasize that before I drop off. And I think that point
I think we lost Anupam over there. Sandeep,
yeah,
you're
maybe.
in the meantime.
nothing embarrassing about it. There's no shame in it. Survival is about performance, as I said earlier, and you need to shamelessly go and ask for whatever it takes for you to survive. So with that, I'm going to drop off, and I wish you guys all the best. And we're here for you. Should you have any specific questions, you could pass on to Naveen.
Thanks, Anupam. Yeah.
Sure. So Naveen, I was going to sort of thanks Anupam for those comments. Actually, it was really helpful, and I was going to build on what Vishal was saying around scenario planning, because I think this is really also time for all entrepreneurs to start thinking about the next 3 to 6 months actually. And when you're doing some scenario planning, I'll try and help you with factors that you need to look at. So you're going to look at the internal forces within your business as to how your own organization will need to shape and reshape itself in this time. And then you need to look at the external forces as well from a business environment perspective. So let's take the external forces first. I think in our scenario planning, we must build business resilience, right? So aspects to cover there: challenge your own business model. You might have been extremely successful with your current business model, but look at what's happening in the external market forces. The points that Vishal and Anupam made about is there a specific change in the behavior of people because of this event? For instance, examples that Vishal took were very relevant. Are event companies going to exist for the next 3 to 6 to 12 months? Perhaps not, because people are not going to go there. So I think look at your existing business models and tweak your business model to suit what is happening with the current circumstances. I also believe that the world will change its ways a little bit, not as much as Vishal set out, for instance, because Vishal, for instance, I sort of, I'm in Anupam's boat there, which is to say that for a US company, at this point in time, to outsource is going to be extremely socially negative. Right, whilst he's going to watch his cost, look for ways to do it cheaper, but there is a social impact of that. And what people will definitely watch across the globe is your own employees at this point in time.
But already we have seen that happening. That the example I was
employees or get their morale down. So I think that might be one of the problems in a big behavior shift across the globe. The second, I think. The thing to watch is your investor community. So Sandeep's he's mentioned that there is capital available. I think wherever you all have had some investor already invested in you, please engage with the investor on a very regular basis, because they also understand your pain. investors obviously have seen a lot more of investing, have a wider view than what entrepreneurs have about their own business. So I think engaging with investors at this point in time is extremely beneficial as well, because they will, if they can't help you with additional funding or your cash burn, they will at least feel your pain, number one. And number two, they will appreciate where you're coming from. So an investor community also is a community which talks quite a bit among itself, from my experience, having done a lot of work in the M&A space. I do think that if you are engaged with your investors on a regular basis, it is going to help the entrepreneur community as well. Then coming to the internal forces that you must really look at in terms of your own businesses, there are 3 points there that I want to touch. Firstly is technology. So you are almost all of you would be tech heavy businesses, right? You're not traditional brick and mortar businesses. You are technology heavy businesses, where a lot of points in time, either your own staff are working from home, or your customer base or supplier base has various other digital touch points. It does raise issues around security, around technology. So be careful about the capacity and the resilience of your own technology capability. I'm not, this is not a time to invest money and throw money behind a lot of security at this point in time, but you must be sure that you are keeping your guard at an appropriate level from a technology perspective. That's one. Second, someone made the point earlier, very critical one, about cash being king. This is a time to watch your working capital. Look at the spend side of your P&L and go through every item to determine whether it is critical or pushable. So what is critical, you must do. What is pushable and deferable, you must defer at this point in time. And managing your working capital is going to be really critical. And therefore, look at your processes, look at your controls. What is everyone doing? What really is critical? One example that someone gave me the other day, and I found it quite interesting, is that at this point in time, the guy who writes your invoices might be more critical to your business than the CFO. So you need to identify what are those critical elements of those business, and they're not necessarily always obvious, right? So that's the second thing for you to evaluate. And the third most critical piece at this point is the morale of your team. Keep them engaged. Pull them into all conversations. And I know you all operate in a startup community which is better than businesses like ours, for instance, which are more traditional. We've got about 12,500 people, or actually including our global services business, about 20,000 people in India. Our engagement levels with them are at a different sort of scale, and we are finding several ways as KPMG to engage with our clients, with our teams on a regular basis. We're conducting trainings, we are upskilling them, we're making sure that they understand where the firm is as well. So this is the time to create more ownership among your team as far as you are concerned as well. So involve them in your decision making, and keeping the morale of your team high is super, super critical. The last point I'd like to make is review your contracts. There is a lot of WhatsApp chatter going around force majeure contracts, people wanting legal advice at this point in time on should we try and, or how do we get out of certain of our contracts, etc., etc. Review your contracts, both from the perspective of, is there something that you would like to evaluate potentially getting out of? Risky strategy, but perhaps there is an opportunity to do it. But more importantly, look at the contracts that you have, both from your supplier community as well as your demand chain as well. How do you supply and reach your customers? So look at the entire supply and the demand chain, and look at where your contracts are. Are they onerous? If your suppliers, and a lot of them might be a case for the entrepreneurs on this call, if your suppliers are larger than you, are they going to try and flex their muscles to trouble you with the clauses in the contracts? Try and watch out for that. Be careful of what you have on your contracts. Be close to your supply chain. Be close to your demand chain. Those are the points I sort of wanted to make, Naveen, and happy to take questions.
Sure.
Naveen, I have to drop off.
Okay.
Just one last point, guys. This is the time to focus on two things: physical well-being and mental well-being. These are the only two things as individual and companies. Right now, I'm offering a pro bono session for any of the startups. I can do a 30-minute online with you and your teams if you want me to talk about these two things, especially on your workplace. There is a form on Twitter. You can just look at my tweet and give us a little more details, and we will come back to you. And as a gesture, we are offering this session to any startup out here for your teams. If the teams are smaller, maybe we can combine 2-3 startups, and we will talk specifically about team morale, mental health, as well as physical well-being. So with this, I think I'll sign off, and everybody, we will get through this. Don't worry, we are all here together. We are all on the same boat.
Thanks a ton, Vishal, and thank you for joining us. Sandeep, what do you have to say? Anything that you want to add?
I'm good. Thanks.
So folks, we're open.
If there's any specific questions,
yeah, please.
I can answer those, but otherwise.
Asking any specific questions, start typing them out, and also please type to whom do you want to ask this question, and I will direct it to them.
Naveen, can I ask on the audio?
No, please go ahead, Pradeep.
Yeah. So, Mohit, it's more of a suggestion request rather than a question, because you did mention that the security of your technology, cyber security of your technology is important, and right now you may have other worries than surviving than thinking about security. But are there any suggestions on certain things they can check on, do, is a good thing to do, because in a way, if they set certain things right, when things do go back to normal slowly, they will be better prepared.
Sorry, I had to drop off because I had stopped being able to hear anyone.
Oh, Mohit, I'll repeat. My comment was for you. This is Pradeep.
Yeah.
You made a point about the security of your technology for the startups is important, and you also said that may not be on the top of your mind right now when you're trying to survive. But are there any suggestions you have on certain things they should do in these times, the lockdown time, to check it out so they are better prepared when things do get back to normal eventually?
I think I agree with you. I think generally my experience with the startup community has been that they can be slightly lackadaisical with identifying what their crown jewels are from an IP perspective, or from what is really critical to their business, right? At this point in time, I would suggest, because I don't recommend high spends on security at this point in time, I would recommend that you watch what is crown jewel IP for you as far as the business is concerned, and make sure that you do not stop spending some money on looking at protecting that aspect. So you've got to look at controls on endpoints. For instance, your staff are working from various locations now, opening up themselves to various risks at home as well. So look at controls on endpoints, look at controls on your applications and your infrastructure. And it's not a large exercise. Whoever is doing your technology piece, I think can help you very simply by putting at least minimal controls and security around certain critical important aspects which you must protect at this point.
Thanks, Mohit.
So Mohit, is it possible from our firm KPMG to maybe send out some tips on these certain tools that are available, or any good practices that Naveen can then circulate to this group?
Yeah, absolutely. I'll get one done. I will get a one-pager done on what we believe should be at a minimum what you must have from a security perspective at this point in time. And I'll keep in mind that too much spending is not an option at this point for most entrepreneurs.
That's great. That will be very helpful. Yeah.
Yeah.
Thanks. Sandeep, we have a couple of questions for you from the audience.
I think
Sorry.
Yeah, I saw those. I saw those. Let me sort of raise a broader point over here. And I think most of the folks that were on this call were digital first entrepreneurs. I don't know how many people who are on the call as entrepreneurs are digital first. I saw somebody asking a question about logistics and so on. So I'm assuming there is a mix of people on this call. I think my broad point over here is this goes back to how do you save 12 months of salary. If you are hoping that things will improve and therefore you are not cutting costs, stop that. I think at this point, if you feel that your business is at risk and you're not cutting costs because you hope things will get better, please don't work with that hope. Cut costs. That is one thing that we're telling all our companies. Anybody that does not have 12 months of sort of runway, or at least 6 months of runway, we are saying manage it, right? What we are seeing companies do there. So number one, it starts with the founder or the entrepreneur. People are either taking severe salary cuts or deferrals. So we have seen offers from founders of as much as a 50% pay reduction or 6 months deferral, that we will not take salaries for a period of time. And what that does is when the founder says that, then you can go to your employees and say that can you defer pay for 2 months? If I'm deferring it for 6 months, can you defer it for 2 months? Right. So it just buys you some cash flow time till collections happen. But it'll have to start with the founder sort of stepping up and taking that call. We have seen people who had there was a very interesting question that I don't think got answered around appraisals. What do you do at this time of appraisals? So this is actually a very important time. You don't know how long this work from home will go on, but people are expecting some leadership and direction from senior management at this time. So if you haven't done this, think about putting OKRs in place. Think about putting in sort of career ladders in place if you have a large organization in particular, so that people understand what you expect from them in as much granularity as possible. If you have HR teams, have your HR person work with you in defining those. So in engineering, for example, define what does an entry-level engineer need to do. How does that person become a team leader? How does that person become a staff engineer? How does that person become a VP of engineering? Right. So there's a range. I'm just giving examples, but it is very important at this point in time for your employees who are not meeting you on a day-to-day basis to understand that they are delivering to your expectations. And the only way you can do that is by documenting those. Sorry. Yeah. So the only way you can do that is by documenting your expectations as clearly as possible. So number one, do that with your employees at this point. As I said, the other thing is, if there need to be sort of harsh measures taken, do that early and do that openly. There are situations where you have to make a choice between cutting everybody's salary or cutting 20% of your staff. If you have a small team and you need to retain everyone, then obviously your choice will be to take a 20% salary cut for everyone versus letting 20% of the people go. So again, depending on the situation that you're in, you have to take different decisions in how you will make that choice, right? So work with your bank, be aware of the situation that you're in. Over communicate at this point in time if needed. And if you are running a business, which hopefully one person said that they are actually seeing very good growth, business continues to grow, I think you should reach out to investors and pitch to investors. People are looking for interesting business ideas. We've just written a check 2 weeks ago, and one of our companies is raising money right now from external investors. So people are investing. It's not that the guy who was looking at my company suddenly said, no, I'm not going to invest, right? So people are investing. So that will continue to happen. Don't lose sort of faith that good ideas will not get funded. They will get funded.
And there's also been a question to you, Sandeep, on what do you right time to start researching on it? Should we start looking at different markets now?
So, there was a question that somebody asked that, if my employees don't have work because my revenue is zero, what do I do, right? So this goes back to, if you think that it's a small team and you need to maintain that team, you can put them to other pieces of work that you would not normally have them do. Now, it's a tough call. So I'll give you I'll two examples in my portfolio. One company has 5 years of cash on its balance sheet. They have spare engineering capacity right now because some of their customers have chosen to delay deployment of the software. So they have people who are sitting idle because they were going to go deploy the software at customers. It required on-site delivery, so they're not there, right? So what does this person do? So that person is being put to use by saying, okay, go and understand a better deployment approach. Can we deploy the software remotely? What would you do on site that you can do sitting in the office or sitting at your home? So we are actually, in some ways, doing scenario planning with our employees, saying, what if this were to not just happen now, but it were to happen for the next 1 year? How would you still do your job? How would you protect your job? How would you get revenue for your company, right? So on. So there are these thought experiments that you can do. Now you can do these thought experiments because you're sitting with 5 years of cash. I have another company that is literally on a month-to-month basis. There, when this situation happened, where customers said, "Hey, we don't want to deploy at this point in time," we are having to let services, the professional services people go. So again, look at your individual opportunity. Look at your individual situation. We can, as people who are giving advice, we can give advice that is not, doesn't understand your context fully. So please, my one other piece of advice to you is, take whatever we say and apply it to your context, and then make the choice, right? There is no asked about, GST payments. My advice right now is, if you had to prioritize your payments, statutory payments should always come on the top, right? Delay your rental payment, but don't delay your statutory payment. Once you fall behind on statutory payments, number one, it's a very easy thing to do because the government is not chasing you on a day-to-day basis. Your landlord is chasing you on a day-to-day basis. So it's very easy to not pay the government, but it actually impacts you more in the long run. I've seen this from everything, including financing is not happening because statutory payments were not up to date, right? People, these when you're doing a due diligence, this comes out that, you delayed statutory payments for 6 months at some point in time. That's a red flag. So I think, again, if to the point that Mohit made, is think through your payments cycles, think through your cash flow, make sure that your GST, and the government, by the way, anyways, is giving some leeway in this. So there is going to be more and more, potentially, benefits that will come. So, but my recommendation to you is, please don't have statutory payments as your last payment. So it's a big problem.
I completely agree, Sandeep. To the point you made about the government, there have been representations made to the government on GST payments as well. I have no visibility yet whether they will actually do some relaxation or not, but I have to say that my experience of the last 10 odd days of looking at the government's responsiveness to various representations being made by business is quite high. So I'm quite hopeful that there will be some bit of relaxation coming on various counts as far as regulatory payments are concerned. But in my list of uncompromisable payments that you must do, regulatory payments is right up. And Sandeep's pointed it out from a investor's perspective as well, that it's never seen in good light. And secondly, even from a payout perspective, a landlord can't run with the penalty and interest, but the government will come running with penalty and interest as well. So may as well just pay it on time.
Yeah, you see, the difference is that today, if the landlord is giving you a hard time, you'll find another landlord, right? You can work from home. There is no other government that you can go to. You can't go work in Sri Lanka or you can't go work in Pakistan, right? You have to work in India. So this is one place you can't run away from. So very important that you don't get into that situation, which potentially just, in many cases carries with you even personally. It doesn't stop at the company. That risk of, red flags and so on could potentially stay with you on a personal basis also. Just be a little careful on that.
Yeah. So another question for you, last one before we leave.
Yeah.
So a lot of people are privately pinging me and asking me, how do they get in touch with investors like you to pitch currently in this scenario?
So I think what we can do, Naveen, is probably take the office hours concept,
okay,
and maybe do a few extensions, use Zoom,
correct,
and maybe your office can coordinate, and we can set these up for 20 minutes each or whatever, just to get a different approach.
Okay, so we'll kind of do the office hours also along with pitching them.
Yeah.
So I'm also getting a few more questions. Yeah, a lot of questions on, do we add new products? Do we add new features at this time? What do we do?
So again, this is as I said, it's a very, very context specific question.
Mm-hmm.
If you are a business to business solution provider, if you are working with enterprises and so on, and you have cash flow at this point in time, one of the things to seriously consider is product innovation as a means to build a stronger relationship with the customer, right? So, if you have the ability to retain your engineering team, and you don't have the ability at this point to put them to work in deployment in existing clients, then one approach is to look at product innovation. And we are recommending this to a few of our companies that are well capitalized to do this quite aggressively. So if you have the capital and you have a pretty good understanding of what your customers want, and you sort of have a little bit of a breather right now because your customers aren't breathing down your neck and saying, I want this feature yesterday, then take the time to build the feature out.
Any other thoughts or questions before we wrap it up? I'm asking the entire panel.
Yeah, thanks, and good luck with your, with the thing. And just anybody who's on this, who's sort of, doing a physical business and is getting impacted by this whole lockdown and curfew, if you are providing essential services, then the police is being very, very supportive right now in proactively issuing passes in various cities. Bombay wasn't issuing passes till yesterday. They have started issuing passes for essential service providers. So please reach out and get those passes and continue with your operations. Okay.
Okay.
Thanks everyone.
Thank you everyone.
Thank you everyone. And just to kind of let everyone know that we have a lot of digital, talks lined up. Keep a watch on what's coming out. There is an AI session happening from 4 o'clock today. We do have another public interest one tomorrow at 11 a.m. And then we have an investor one on Saturday. So keep a watch on all the new developments. Next week, interestingly, we will be doing programs with Nishit Desai Associates. These folks will then talk to you about force majeure, how can you rework your contracts and everything. So keep a look for that. We kind of also, we're a little bit rugged during these times because all the entrepreneurs that I get in touch with, it's such an evolving time that every hour their situation keeps changing. So in fact, thanks to Anupam, he had not even agreed, but he somehow found time and joined us today. And I want to thank everybody, because all of them have a lot of work in terms of managing their businesses, and so do all of you. But then again, Tai is here. If you think you need that extra shoulder to talk to and come, we're always there. We'll keep you guys connected and networked. And yeah, we'll come out of this pretty strong. And very interestingly, I was talking to some of the industry leaders yesterday, folks from the Tatas, Mahindras, and all of them. And interestingly, they believe that the startups will be more resilient than their own companies if they don't manage this well. So on those thoughts, thank you all. Let's all regroup, say at 4 o'clock for the ones who want to do training on AI. And see you all tomorrow. If you guys want to know about what is COVID-19, we'll have folks from Hindustan Hospital who will be coming and giving you the true facts and figures of what's happening. That's a health kind of a thing, advisory. And Saturday is the investor one where we're talking to all investors from across the continent. And there, I think you guys can get all your questions answered. I purposely skipped a few questions because Saturday is the day when we are getting a lot many more investors, and really happy to take on your questions. Thanks, everyone. Stay safe and keep in touch with everyone.
Thank you. Thanks, Naveen, for this. Yeah.
Thanks, Mohit.
Thank you. Thanks, Naveen. Thanks very much.
Thank you.
Thanks, Naveen. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.